I didn't always have the answers. Honestly, I still don't. I've been through heartbreak, healing, and hustle, and somehow I'm still standing. This podcast, it's my story in real time. No filters, no fluff, just life as it relates to me. So pull up. Every episode, my guest and I will talk, we'll get real, we'll grow and learn together. Welcome to As It Relates to Me, the podcast. All right, guys. Hi, welcome back. We are here for episode 3 of As It Relates to Me. Today, we are going to be having conversation for the woman of a certain age, over 40, like myself. I'm going to have my guest today, who is my homegirl, my down-ass chick, join me, and we're going to talk about all the things as it relates to us as women with children, juggling, being career women, and just navigating through life differently than we planned. So I'm going to introduce and welcome my good sis, Tara.
Hello.
Hey, girl. Hey. Mwah. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh,
this
but
is
of course.
so exciting.
Yes.
Especially when you get to have a real conversation.
It's literally going to be just like how we talk all the time.
But I like, and then the title gives it that, right? Mm-hmm. As it relates to me. Mm-hmm. And I love that.
Yes. So the title for today's episode is Starting Over in Your 40s, Motherhood, Identity, and having fear, the fear and the things that no one talks about that we experience when we get to a certain age. And we realize the things that we were planning didn't happen that way.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's good to have a plan. People you have a plan and then God laughs at it. But it's good to have a plan, like an idea. Mm-hmm. It's just like some type of structure. And I think now in my 40s, I realize just how important that plan is. Because when I meet a lot of younger kids, including my own, it's almost like the word plan doesn't even exist. And, even in the conversation of what does your future look like, even if you change it, even if it's, you don't know exactly how you're going to get there or exactly what you want to do, what makes you feel good. Mm-hmm. And I think that I always say I came from the backwoods of Mississippi, and I've always known what I wanted to do.
Right.
So I feel like that part of it, we took for granted, right? Just to be able to have that plan. Yeah. As a young woman. Something to constantly pull back from, or just something to guide, a pendulum, right? Am I far off from where I wanted to be? So. Yeah.
So picking up right there, one of the first things as we jump into the conversation I wanted to discuss is I thought I'd be further than I am right now, right? Things that we face as seasons of uncertainty and reinventing ourselves, and just as it relates to me, particularly when I was in college, I was I'm going to graduate with my bachelor's, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to get my master's. And then by the time I'm 30, my career is going to be popping.
Yeah.
It didn't happen that way.
Oh, that's
right.
So funny.
So what do you do when you you sat down and you planned everything out and you just romanticize what your life is going to look like, be it marriage, children, professionally, and then it doesn't happen? How do you reinvent the wheel?
I think it's funny you said that. For me, school was the easy part, kind of, because in Mississippi, it's not much to do. So if you're not in school, you kind of, when I grew up, you're kind of like an outcast. So everybody was in school. So that was the easy part. I thought that if I went to school, got it done quickly, I could be closer to where I wanted to be. And then you still realize you're not quite there. You know what? Sometimes I feel like there has to be a tunnel vision, right? When you have these ideas, and we don't know that life is going to throw these things into us, whether it's having children or falling in love for the first time, or having to redirect yourself because financially you need to work and can't just follow a certain dream. I don't think that we factored a lot of those things into it. It's just this thing that we wanted to do, but not factored in how we're going to do it. And then I think we have to do more check-ins. I remember being 30 and saying, wait a minute, am I too old now to still be an actor? Am I too old? Is this ever going to happen for me? So then I begin to look at other women and say, well, how old was she when this happened to her? Or how old was she when that happened to her? And then even though I had structured myself in such a way, I ended up having a baby at 31.
Wow.
And then I just got
Really?
completely kicked off
Yeah.
of what I
Course.
wanted to do, the course. Yeah.
So now that you
Yeah.
said that, what has been the scariest thing about admitting like your plan isn't working and now it's time to like pivot to what's next?
I think the one of the scariest parts is to admitting that you don't know what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and to seek, whether it's professional help, restructuring the strategy, but it is letting all of the ideas around what you thought were supposed to happen, let all of those go to come in and foster a new idea.
Mm-hmm.
How can I now do this given my circumstances? And I think, like, you know, as much time as we spend scrolling, we should spend more time trying to figure that out so that we can get back to the plan. And one of the great things that I think that is so important in our time is that women who are 30 and 40 don't look that.
Yeah.
You know, it looks different for us. And nobody talks about how much hard work that went into making that look different for us. And we can reinvent ourselves. But I think the scariest part is like admitting you don't know what the hell you're doing. And you need to just say,
yeah,
what can I do to get back to where I need to be?
Yeah. As it relates to me, I'll say, so when I went to college for the very first time, I went to college because my dad was like, you have to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I took up like business administration. I flunked out. I ended up getting pregnant with my first daughter. And then I was in a season of just like, okay, what do I really want to do? Like, what is a natural gift that I have that I know I could apply it to make money for myself?
Right.
So then I ended up going to school to get my Bachelor of Arts. And I had this whole plan. Like once I figured it out, I was like, oh my God, I want to go into like media. I really want to be a on-air TV personality. I'm really going to hustle for that. And I was doing it. And then it didn't work out that way. I ended up falling into, like another career or whatever. But I still had this whole plan of 30 is going to be it for me. Like, I'm not going to still be hustling at 35 and 40. And now it's like, even here, like having started the show is getting back to the original plan.
Right.
But I do believe that, like you said before, we plan, God laughs is very true. And we always have to figure out a way of how to reinvent ourselves. But the scariest part is admitting, like, I don't know if when I started out on this plan, I actually thought this plan out. Like, it sounded good in my head that this is what I want to do. But now I'm here, oh, shit.
Right.
What is really happening?
For me, so when I finished when I finished undergrad, I did it in 3.5 years because I'm like, I got to hurry up and get out of here. Because I'm trying to be an actor. I need to do this while I'm as young as possible. And for a long period of time, everything was just kind of falling into place. Like I remember I started graduate school, I had nowhere to live. My mother was like, why don't you just sit here and stay in Mississippi for another year? We'll come back to Mississippi because I had already left Mississippi to do an internship. She's like, come back to Mississippi, stay here for a year. And my family was excited about that. And so my aunt was a speech therapist. She's like, you'll work for me again. And I was like, no, like my time has come to an end here. Like I'm not going back there. So I didn't know how I was going to figure out New York. And I could not afford housing at the new school. I didn't know how I was going to figure it out. I really didn't. And then just so happened, my best friend at the time ran into a man. His name was Tim O'Connell. I used to babysit for him. Wow. And he was he was the director of construction at the theater next to Crossroads where I was working. And he was like, oh, Tara could just live with me. Mm-hmm.
Look at that.
And it was like just like that. Like the guy I used to babysit for was like,
that was God's real plan.
Yeah, it was so crazy. So it gave me like this huge belief that anything could happen. So it furthered, like already I had this crazy dream as a little girl in Mississippi. And I'm like, no, this could really happen because look how that happened. But I do feel like and I tell this to people all the time, but somewhere in there I fall short of it. And that is, if you have a dream, you just have to go for the dream blindly, right? And don't even worry about the things that are falling apart, right? Like it's like, the image of somebody running, but the whole city is being blown up behind you. And I'm like, because like there are all of these things falling into place. And even I feel like as I've gotten older and you have children and like fear becomes a thing, I stop believing in that. And I'm like, I just got to do it. The city behind me is falling, and I just got to find out how I'm going to make this happen for myself.
Right, because the fear is an illusion.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
it really is.
You got to do it, and you got to do it afraid.
Yeah. It's so funny. Even on the ride here, I was thinking, oh my God, I'm all emotional today, hormonal. And I was thinking, just literally on the Uber right here, I'm like, oh my God, what does love look like for me? Like, oh my God, I'm too old. I got these grown kids. Like, what is, and I'm like, and I know that it's because I'm hormonal, right? That I'm feeling this, but it's still a thought that I'm having. And I'm like, damn, like, okay, I gotta fix that. I gotta restructure that thought. Yeah.
Well, love at our age definitely looks different from what we thought it was going to look like in our 20s and 30s. Like, we thought it was what we saw in the movies, on TV. It was a fairy tale.
Yeah.
That's not what it is.
No.
This is the furthest thing from what it is, actually.
I think sometimes, and this started with me when I started reading the book, The Second Sex, right? So The Second Sex is...
who's that by?
I forget her name. And it's
so
funny I had this thought.
List.
But no, The Second Sex, it's I forget her name off the top of my head. You guys can look it up. But anyway, I started reading this book, and I don't know, I can't remember what made me buy. I think I saw some quotes, and I picked it up. But it's like the feminist Bible, what was considered the feminist Bible.
Okay.
And when you first pick it up, you realize that every idea that we have ever had about ourselves as women has come from someone telling us what a woman should be. So there's like a lot of negativity around, or even older women who've been told by a man. You're believing them. But like, to define ourselves for ourselves on our own as a whole being has never really existed, except for a few that get stigmatized.
Yeah.
And then I think people like to take other books, scriptures, and they like to use what's beneficial to them to now define us. And I think that's part of it. It's like, we've been so afraid to define ourselves. It has done an injustice for the younger women coming up. And defining ourselves doesn't mean, we're just sexually fluid and we want to sleep with everybody in the world. It's not that. It's like, who am I as a woman, as a whole being, and not lesser than a part of something. Like, who I am is enough. And like, let me go through what I go through and have the freedom to fail, to pick myself up, to not believe that, there's just so many ideas that we've been taught that we believe to be a thing that controls how we move in the world. How we move
through life. I was having this conversation with one of my homeboys the other day in regards to relationships, and just how the idea of being a woman, if you don't have every box checked off, like you don't have the perfect marriage, the perfect career, the perfect home, the beautiful children, you're not successful. And I'm like, I've gotten to now at this space where I'm not prioritizing love, because I feel like I prioritize it almost, all of my life, of like being in a relationship and like, okay, I have that, even if it wasn't good, but hey, I got a man, right?
Right.
And so he was like, so you don't want to be in love and in a relationship? And I was like, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, like, at this phase of my life where I'm at, that's not the focus for me.
It's not the priority.
I want to prioritize myself and then let the love come, but that's not going to be the center of my existence anymore. So I definitely agree with that.
And then sometimes when we're on the wrong track, it's interesting you say that. When we're on the wrong track or we're on the wrong path, something comes, like some wave comes and pushes us off. And like, it hurts, it really hurts. But it's like, hey, you're not where you're supposed to be. And like, I've been trying to give you a little nudge, but you're not listening. So now I got to knock your ass out. To wake you up.
Universe is gonna come with those lessons.
And then you have to learn those lessons. But I think that's just a part of life. There's no getting out of any lesson. It doesn't matter where you're born, in privilege, in poverty. There are gonna be hard lessons no matter where. That's just a part of life, and we deal with that as if it's something, a misfortune that's happening to you. And I think that's I remember my grandfather, right, who's a strong figure in my life, and as a young girl, us having these conversations, right, about life and what it was really supposed to be and what it's really gonna look like. And, and then my father, who was also a very strong figure in my life, who would always just be like, be careful now, face and ass is only going to take you so far. So I never grew up thinking that, I was pretty or I was special. It was like, find what you're good at, what you love to do, because face and ass is only going to take you so far. That's how I move in life. It's like, and with, as it relates to everything, especially as it relates to me, it is, okay, charm, what people may like about you on the surface, but then what else is there? And
That's
you
true.
know, I think I struggle there. It's like to open up and show my talents and being vulnerable around people, even if I look crazy for a second. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about, now that we've touched on fear a little bit, and navigating, like you say, you had a child at 31, and I'm saying I thought I was going to have a career intact by 30. But also, like, let's talk about what fear feels like in this stage of life, not mentally, but just like emotionally, physically, when we feel like, all right, I'm getting older. So like, what is, by the time I'm 50, what is that looking like for me in terms of career, love, just overall settling in yourself and who you are when you have to start over, right? So like, because you know, I got divorced recently, right? So I feel like I'm in this whole rediscovering of myself, and I'm loving it, right? I'm getting in touch with younger me, and I'm getting back to doing things, but getting here was very, very scary. Like, even just accepting that that part of my life was over was scary. But this phase that I'm in now, I'm doing it with the fear. I'm doing the podcast.
Right.
I don't know where it's going to take me, but I'm doing it because it's something I want to love. So like, what does that feel like for you?
You know, I've dealt with a lot of fear because I'm always sometimes in uncomfortable situations. And what I've learned to deal with, and this goes back to being in graduate school for acting, is this sounds so corny, is really breathing into the fear, like never allowing the fear to stop your breath, because that's where the anxiety comes from, is when your breath stops, is to breathe through it. And then sometimes I don't take it so serious.
Yeah.
It's like some things will just be bad.
Yeah.
You know, like some things you put your best foot forward and it will be bad. It will not be as good as you'd like it to be. But you got to do it anyway.
And it's not a reflection of your capability.
Yes, but you have to do it. You have to do it anyway, because like, where else are you going to get the practice to be better other than to be in the position? Like I have a huge cringing moment that just happened to me. My best friend, who was president of a university, he asked me to come speak at his investiture.
Oh, I remember. Yeah.
And I don't know what happened, but I just flopped on that speech, and there was so many impactful things I wanted to say. And it was like my moment to say it for not just me, but my grandmother, who went to Jackson College. And I flopped on that. And I was like, oh, wow. So, you know, I internalized that for a long time. It was something I really had to let go. But it was almost like, you know, these things are just going to happen. You know, you're going to fail at something. And it is not the determining factor. You just have to pick yourself up and keep going. Another part of fear, not just like publicly, but another part of fear is those voices in your head that tell you can't do something, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I have a way of tackling that. And I probably haven't always done this, but I tackle that by literally talking to that. Like, you know, I don't run from it. I'm like, okay, I can feel that my stomach is tight right now. I can feel that I don't know what I'm doing. So now how can I go and prepare myself?
Right.
You know, and I try to always be prepared. I try to always do the homework. I try to not, as my mentor says, use my excuses as reasons and my reasons as excuses.
Well, I
and
like
just
that.
show up. Yeah.
Yeah, because we definitely will rationalize things like, oh, well, if I do this and it doesn't work out, then that means that it's not. That's not what it means.
It just means you weren't prepared. It means that, you know, you didn't take the time. You didn't take the time you needed to prepare. You know, as an actor, sometimes when I was interning for Crossroads, right? This is before I'm at Crossroads Theater, and I remember this one woman, Kim. Kim would always be, no matter what anybody was doing, you know, everybody has their different acting type, but she was I guess what we would say, a method actor.
Okay.
And Kim would always be on the side doing her thing. You know, got her music playing. Whatever it took for her to drop in and take as much space as she needed, she was always doing that. And sometimes, whether we don't know how to do it, which is no one else's fault, we're not taking the time that we need to prepare the way we need to.
Yeah, perfect the craft.
Yeah, I mean, in whatever it is, not just acting. I just use those as examples because those are the ones that I have in my head. But whatever it is, like, you know, if you want to be the best in the meeting, you know, if you want to, you got to prepare what you want to say, no matter what anybody else is saying around you. What is the thing and the point that you want to get across?
Yeah,
and like find the segue to get to that point. And I think we don't do that, you know, and I think we like to blame it on other people, but it's really just our lack of preparation is no one else's problem.
Oh yeah. I used to have a sign in my old office that said that something along those, like, your lack of planning is not an emergency on my part.
Yeah. And I think we have to learn to take up that space to do and say and be the way we want to be.
The way you want to be, to show up authentically.
Yeah.
Do you ever worry about like running out of time accomplishing the things that you want to as you're getting older? I mean, you aging anyway, like fine
Look,
wine.
I'm definitely aging.
Like fine wine, baby, though. I'm saying.
Thank you. I'll take it. You know what? Yeah, because like at some point, right, we thought that life was going to be, we live this thing, right? And then at some point we get on the plane and we fly off and live happily ever after. And then you realize it's not that. You know, when you look at people's lives and you look at the entrance and the exit date, it is literally a period of time. And then you can look at their accomplishments. The only thing minus in all of that is their day to day and what that looks like.
Yeah.
So I feel like, you know, even in that, we've been told that there's going to come a time where everything is great and grand and then you guys won't have to worry. But I don't think that's what it is. I think that when I look at my grandfathers, when I look at people in my life, it is a constant reinvention.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it's in those moments of joy that I tell this to my kids. I'm like, listen, there's going to definitely be some hard days. But like, you got to get to those moments of joy because that is what's going to stay with you. And that's what I kind of live for, like those superhuman feelings and of joy.
Yeah. Speaking of children and mothering, another part of the journey is remaining being true to yourself while also being a mother. And sometimes while being a mother, you heal through certain things while you have to show up and you know, brave face as the superwoman. So I would like to get into that because I know we speak a lot about mothering.
My kids think I'm crazy. I'm nuts. I am crazy and nuts. I don't know what I be saying to those kids. They're going to need therapy when they leave me. That's all I can tell you. Because I say, I mean, it's just no map to it. I'm like, boy, Lord have mercy.
Boys too.
Yeah. Listen, I'm definitely a
you
crazy,
want to trade at this point?
Wild mother. No. No, my father said it's only right that you would have the boys because boys take a special kind of wild lady to be their mother. And I think I'm that, you know, I try to give it to them all, right? You know, they do get the crazy and I acknowledge that. I know that. And then I go back in with love. So it's just like this crazy cycle of just no sense. It's just all senseless, right? Like we're fighting 1 minute, you know, and then I'm letting them know like, you know, bro, I love you. There's nobody, you don't have to do anything for my love, you know? So I try to give them the same love to that equals out the same craziness that just kind of goes along with motherhood. And nobody talks about that. How hard that shit is.
Girl,
it's so hard.
It's so hard.
They have to eat every day. That's on you. You have to get up. You don't get to, you know, I know everybody's now saying it like you don't get to sleep in. You don't get to do so many things to be a mom. And like it's there's no reward in it. Nobody sees you. You're just doing what's right. And I think that's why mothers, like the level of integrity that we have, because we always have to be caught doing right. Whether someone can see us or they can't. And I always think to myself when I'm doing anything, I'm like, what if there's a camera in my house that I don't know about? What would they catch me doing? And I want that camera to always catch me doing the right thing.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, unless I'm masturbating or something, I hope the camera's off, but let's not take it too serious. But you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I always hope the camera catches me doing except my porn scroll. You know.
Lord Jesus.
But I always want the camera to catch me
I'm
doing
used to
what's
this
right.
conversation. So back to like the no manual for motherhood, right?
Yeah.
And how you navigate your own emotions while you also you're responsible for someone else's emotions. A conversation you said that doesn't happen often. And I think like as it relates to me, you know, when I did the first episode, I opened up with a very vulnerable conversation. And then I just had my launch event to celebrate the podcast, and I spoke about how my daughters have seen so many phases of me through healing, right? Like healing the wound of the parent that I don't have a relationship with, and then healing the wound of, you know, my marriage, feeling it, and everything that they saw in between there, but also just trying to remain true to who I am, and I had lost that along the way. So I think sometimes also like we don't have those conversations as women, as mothers, right? Like we're expected to just be seen as mom, but also like I'm a woman too. And outside of being a mother, like I've always had things that I wanted to do for myself. And so like finding that balance without feeling guilty of that. How do you navigate that and get your kids to understand like, yeah, I'm your mom, but I'm still, you know, a woman with desires and things like that?
You know, part of that was a little hard for me, right? Because at some point I always had like a sitter or a nanny helping, right? So I was able to like map out everything, and it was a nice flow for a while. But then it became a point where I didn't have anybody. I didn't have sitter, nanny. I didn't have any of that. So it was just me. So I had to learn to sit in being a parent.
Yeah.
Without, this is at a time when I had done TV, so I wasn't working my regular job. My regular job, what I realized, provided so much. It provided an income. It was also like the most social place you could be. So I'm at work, I'm working, I'm partying, I'm like meeting people, I'm socializing. So it was just a great place to be. People always ask me like, how did you transition to TV? I'm like, I was already like the life of the party before I even did TV. And that wasn't something I was looking for. It just turned out that way, that when everything got quiet and, you know, whether, you know, a sitter moved out of town or I had to let someone go, I had to learn to sit in being a mother. That was the first thing. What is being a mother? Right. And I tell my kids, I'm like, the one thing I do is I take this job very serious. Right. My role as a mom, it's part of who I am now as a woman. It's part of being a matriarch of this particular family. I take that role very serious. So everything else we will have to get through, but just know that that's the very first thing. Now, I mean, once I learned to sit in that and find joy and happiness in that, you know, that was a lot. Yeah. That was a lot. Like when you have nowhere to turn but in this room. Right. And it's like three people looking at you, you know, like it's just us, you know, it's Friday night and it's us. Yeah. So what am I going to do? What are going to be our traditions? I think once I was able to tackle that and that became second nature, then I realized that I love that part of myself. Like this job is so serious and that's a reward in itself. And then I began to be a little bit selfish about, you know, who I shared my time with, you know, because obviously when you start dating again, for me, that was very tricky. You know, how much of myself do I want to open up? Do I want to open up anything about myself? Yeah. And not for no more other than I don't really have time to take anybody in like that. You know what I mean? Like my life is so full of kids. I don't have time to take you in like that. Yeah. Sir. I like you. But please I don't want to be your girlfriend. I don't want to be like, I don't want to care about your birthday. Right. Oh, wow. I don't want to care much about you. Right. And and so because I found motherhood to be so fulfilling. Right. So that was just my phase and it was my time. And I thought that was really important. So that was the very first thing that I needed to do, was to sit and be a mother. And what did that really look like without any help? Yeah. And I don't mean like help from their father and things like that. Of course, there's always like co-parenting and their father's always around. But it meant, what does it mean for me to be a mom? Without like
depending on a village.
Without
Yes.
depending on the village, you know, picking them up, dropping them off. I can only see you during these times, like, you know, meetings or whatever. I had to like really sit in that. I think that was the hardest part for me because I'd always had someone working, helping me out. You know, I could put them to bed and run out, go hang out with my friends. And so I always had like a little bit of a balance, but then the balance left and it was like, no, you got to just be at home with your kids.
Yeah.
The sitter just moved to North Carolina. Now what? And so I'm never the kind of person that's just going to call anybody to keep my kids.
Of course, yeah.
You know, so I was like, oh, I got to sit in this.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. All right.
Yeah, I've had the experience. I always think about how crazy it is that I've experienced being a single mother literally with no co-parenting, and then I experienced being a single mother married. So like,
yeah,
it's like, oh, okay, wow, that's crazy, but that's what it was. It was like, I'm the one that's going to the doctor's appointments, the parent-teacher conference, the prioritizing fun things to do in the summer, and finding the balance also to like want to try to normalize having a social life, but I would feel guilty, like, because I had a good time in my 20s, and, you know, I was outside. But then when I settled down, I kind of lost that part of myself. And so I remember like when I was getting to a space of realizing like, okay, I think like, you know, this marriage might be fizzling out. So now I wanted to start making new friends and hanging outside and stuff like that. And my youngest daughter was like, all you want to do is go outside with your friends. And I was like, okay, girl, like I was always in the house with them, you know? So I struggled with that too for a little bit. They probably wouldn't have noticed it, but I was like, I gotta go outside. Otherwise, if I'm in this house too long and the environment of the house was, you know, what it was at that time because of what was happening, it just wasn't the place for me. So I had to find that balance of like, how am I gonna move through this phase that I'm in now and rediscovering, redefining myself and what this is gonna look like for me past this chapter.
Listen, you know, I just be wilding out at home. I just be like, I don't give a fuck what nobody said. Your daddy, your grandparent.
She's not lying. I'll be like, on the phone with her.
Like, do you know I will leave your father? like never talk to him again in life to parent you. Like you are my top priority. When I say leave, I mean like it's what I say goes.
Yeah,
you understand? Like, because that's the thing about people not understanding what a real matriarch is in the house. Is like, not that their father's not responsible for them, but I live with you, right? And I tell them nothing and no one will interfere with my parenting. Do you understand? Like, nothing and no one. I will bop you upside your head, and then I will bop your father upside his head. And everybody be sitting there crying with knots about what I did.
Right.
Like, in my house, when it comes to the kids, it's like, it is my say, right? Because
she's not lying.
Only because, you know, like when you are co-parenting, right? Or you have a parent that's soft, or you have like, you realize your different parenting skills, right? It's like, I let him do him and I don't interfere because he's like the fun dad. I mean, you know, Peter is like the dad that any kid would want.
Right.
You know, and so but then there comes the time to work. So if he's watching them while I'm at work, I mean, everybody's in the house wilding out. Nothing's getting done. You know, so then that means when I finally come home from a stressful day, I have to do double the work.
You got to turn on for the other job now.
I got to go into the other job. So, you know, I have to let them know, like, you always have to answer to me. You know what I mean? Like, because it is my say so, because I have to make sure that you guys are okay.
Yeah.
You know, I birth you. So my relationship with you is always going to be different. You know, and dads, we love them, but it is a little bit different, you know? And so I feel like sometimes when you're a single parent, you have to have a balance of all of that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it doesn't lend me to be, you know, as fun sometimes as I'd like to be, but you know, raising kids is serious. Like, it's a serious
black
thing.
Kings.
3 black men in America.
Yes, exactly.
You know, so and honestly, I love that their dad was a fun dad. My dad, the only dad I ever related to on TV was James Evans.
Really?
I was like, I've never recognized a father of any sort until I met James Evans. I was like, oh, that's my father. You know, my dad was very strict and very serious. And although he's cool as hell now, and I'm always like, who is this guy?
It's because you older now. You don't
I
have to
just like,
follow the
bro,
rules.
who are you?
Yeah.
And but you know, I also grew up in a house. I had 8 brothers.
I always forget how big your family is.
Yeah, I grew up in a house.
8 brothers versus me
brothers.
when just me.
And I would just be shooting guns and playing with Barbies. That was my life. Barbies and guns. You know, like it was no in the middle there.
Yeah.
You know, and so I have a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so my brothers, when they try to talk to my boys, I'm like, you know, you better, your mother will hurt you. Don't she's sweeter than I have ever seen her with you guys. And it really just becomes like, you know, understanding that while raising boys too, they need a lot of love.
Yeah.
So that's why I say there has to be that balance for me of the discipline and being very structured, but also like letting them know I love them and I hug them. And, you know, I would wake them up. If I felt like I did something wrong, I would wake them up in the middle of the night. Like, you know what? Maybe I am crazy. Maybe we need to, if you felt like you did the best you could and I'm not, and I didn't listen to you. And I did that because I'm like, I don't want them to have nightmares, you know, thinking about certain things. But you know, parenting is wild. There are no manuals. There's no right way to do it. It's just always pouring into your kid, knowing that when you have boys, they're going to leave you. You're parenting them to leave your house and be a good person to someone else.
Yeah, and then you also have to learn how to parent them as they get older because they're becoming different people. So you have to learn how to parent them at the space
that they're in.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a lot.
Well, at least you don't have no daughters.
I don't know what I would do if I had daughters. It's a scary moment. I had like when they were doing the sonogram for Gunner, I like panicked for like 30 seconds as they were about to tell me what the sex is. And I kept thinking about pink socks. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to clean up my act. I gotta clean up my language. I can't use certain words, you know, because at that time, you know, the kids were like, Mom, we want some boobs. You know, I was like, oh my God, I can't have a little girl saying that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, what about the pink socks? You know, them I could just put 2 socks that kind of look alike and throw them on. But then what about the pink sock if I can't find the other pink sock? And that's all I kept thinking about. And before I could even live with that thought, he was like, it's a boy. I was like, oh God, you know me so well. Thank you.
That's my boo Gunner. I remember when he was small, how he used to be up underneath you doing like this with the thumb in his mouth.
Yeah, his hand was always in my shirt. It was like 4 years of a man's hands in my shirt. Like nonstop. He
is a little man.
And I would be having serious conversations with people.
Serious conversations.
With like a hand.
Just giving you
massages. Like, does everyone understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah, he's that was interesting. And, you know, probably I did baby him too much, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was you know, they were all just so different. They're all so different.
It's true. No child is the same.
Yeah, and you think that they are because they come from the same parents, but you know, especially my middle one, you know, we call him a hacker. And I'm like,
he's so chill.
Yeah, but he's over there hacking into your bank account.
Oh.
So I'm like, when they come to pick you up, I'm turning you in. I'm like, oh, the hacker, he's right there. So, you know, but I always have to let him know because because now it's all this evidence and conversations around middle children, older. So I'm like, yo, bro, I see you. Like, I'm looking at you. I see you. And so, because, you know, you just want to let them know, like, you're there for them.
Yeah.
He's extremely independent. So I'm like, I see you, you know, so I don't know. It's just, you just walk around the house and you might as well put on different wigs, you know, a white one for the older kid, a black one for the middle kid, a blonde one for the little one, you know. You just always somebody else for them.
Now that we've talked about career and them children, let's talk about let's go back to love and how you now at this age, if we do find love, real love or whatever, holding on to ourselves and maintaining ourselves versus, like, you know, we touched on it before, 20 and 30-year-old versions of Giovanna and Tara.
Right.
Their perspective on love was different from how we see it now.
Listen, you know, my grandfather always told me, and I say this, like, it probably ruined me. And that was, he was like, you know, sugar baby, get married when you don't have nothing else to do.
He call you sugar baby?
Uh-huh.
That's so cute.
He like, sugar baby, get married when you don't have nothing else to do. And so that always kind of stuck with me, you know, and so when I read that line out to my aunts and stuff, I was like, he probably knew I was never really, you know, like maybe that, what I'm saying is, it's not that I don't ever want to be married right? I just don't know if that's what I lead with. You know, I think sometimes in our 20s, when there's a lot of insecurity, we don't really know who we are. We look to find people that are going to give us that, right? And then I think in terms of and how women are defining themselves, we realize like, no, I got to work on myself. Like that's what this is. It's not about someone else because we want these people that are not whole to make us whole, right?
Right.
Because I'm like, well, if we all kind of grew up the same, that's what I asked my kids. I was like, what would qualify your friend to be smarter than you? You guys have had the same teachers, the same schools. Like now, what did they go through? So it's like when I look at men, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, well, what have they experienced that would make them smarter or
the
than
right
us?
suitor.
And I think that it's really unfair, right? To expect a person to fulfill us.
Yeah.
And because like what you realize in being married is like, that's not the thing that's going to make you happy, right? It's really those things that you feel deeply within yourself that you haven't fixed. And so you guys are in this relationship and you're both really miserable, but you become codependent upon each other because nobody knows how to be themselves.
Yep.
And like that just comes with so much time and it's so unfair. And I think that's one of the things that we don't prepare young girls for is like this idea. I mean, there's some things that have always just existed that nobody ever wants to talk about, right? Or really deal with. It's like in the history of time, has this ever happened?
Yeah.
No. Okay, so why do we keep telling our young girls to go out and look for that?
Right.
It has never effing happened in the history of time. So then we go and tell our girls to go and like to do this unrealistic thing. And we fail them in a way. And or even, you know, so for me and as it relates to me in love, you know, I don't know. I'm open, you know. I've fallen in love in spaces I never could have imagined. And I'm like, oh God, you know me too well. You love playing games, right? And I think that I just, you know, I just remain open to it. You know, people have all these ideas. Well, God's not going to do this if you don't do this. Or I was like, please don't talk to me with your primitive idea of God. You know, you don't. If a thing is all it's all knowing and omnipotent, you can't limit what you think they can do for me.
Right.
You know, because God can send you. I mean, people have been married and find their wife in another house and go marry her.
Well,
so I'm like, don't limit what is for someone.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the thing. Like, I try not to believe people's stories of what they tell me are possible for me. And I just leave it open, you know. I don't know. Like, I know it when I see it and smell it and touch it, you know, if I want it or not.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about a woman. Like, we know in a men of 100 men, the ones that we like. And I don't think I need to compromise that. It's like, well, you know, you're not married because remember that short guy tried to talk to you? You didn't like him?
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, well, you'd never tell a man to go date a woman that's 11 feet if that's not he's into.
They sure would.
I'm like, God knows I don't like men that are, you know, 5'1", except for Prince.
Yes, she's a Prince fanatic.
So, you know, I'm just open to it, you know, what love looks like for me. But honestly, you know, I also have to be in a position, and for a long time, as I said before, I didn't want to give of myself in that way.
Yeah.
And it's not that I was hurt or, you know, my ex did this to me or my ex did that to me. It was really, you know, when we look at it, right, and the men that we like, right, you know, I just so happened to fall in love with a man that all the women liked.
Yeah.
And who knew how hard it was for him to say no when it's just so easy to have access to everything.
Yeah.
And I've watched it happen in my face. You know, women don't care that you're there. You know, if they have an idea and they want that man, they're going to try to get that man, you know? And so I don't even feel the same way about that, you know? And I just feel like we just have to get out of this box way of thinking and then seek, you know, what's for us.
The truth and the answers.
Yeah.
I've realized this year too, everything for me has changed on what my belief systems are in terms of relationships. Like,
yeah,
aside from, you know, the marriage, if I had a relationship before that, it wasn't too many, you know, like first and second chances, I would be like, you cut off or whatever.
Yeah.
You knew what you like. My deal breakers for sure is like cheating.
Yes. Oh my God.
Don't bring no outside babies. Like, we not doing none of that. But like, now that I'm older and just picking apart myself and re-parenting myself and reinventing myself. I'm being a little bit more real with myself, how things actually work in a relationship, and changing I'm keeping my expectations. Let me not say changing them.
Right.
I'm keeping my expectations on certain things that
Right.
are a requirement to be with me. But in terms of just like the concept and mentality of like, people who love you won't hurt you, that's not true.
That's
like
not true.
There's gonna be those situations. Now, if it's, are you intentionally hurting me, or are you not?
Right.
It's mistakenly because you really don't know better. Like, there's a little bit of grace there. And I have realized, like, I sit and think all the time to myself, and I said this in the first episode. I spend a lot of time with myself. I've been really thinking about a lot of things, and love for me now would look so different from what I thought it was before. Like, before I thought it was like, if I'm not seeing you maybe like 2-3 times, we don't live together, and I'm not seeing you this amount of times a week, and we're not doing dates, like, that's just not real, right? Like, if we're managing careers and our other interests and social lives or whatever it is, like, I don't want you in my face all the time, right?
No, it's so true.
Yeah, so.
It's so much of that is so unrealistic. Like, I'll hear girls who want expensive things and they want a man to buy it. I said, well, you got to either choose to get this Chanel bag and be lonely, or get a Coach bag and have a man. Like, you can't have it all, right? Because like somebody has to pay for that. Look, I don't have the answers on relationships, in terms of, and I know people always think I'm the poster girl, but, or even like, because I don't do it the way you think you're going to do it doesn't mean I have low self-esteem.
Right.
You know what I mean? Relationships are hard because you have loved a person and you're battling now not loving them, even though you want to. And so it's not like there's or they want women to be magicians, right? It's like, well, you should have you should have saw the red flags, and it's like, wait a minute, I gotta love him, then I gotta think like a man, and then act like a woman.
It's too much.
But then I'm like, how many other things do you need me to be, to make up for someone who just did something bad?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna buy into that. But people believe these very stereotypical things when things just sometimes don't work out. It's not about the red flags. It's not about any of that. It's when it doesn't service you, you need to move on. That's what I tell people.
Yeah.
If you check in and you say, do I feel safe and comfortable? We have to have the courage to walk away without it being, a love and hip hop moment finding out the man is married. We have to normalize that behavior. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the thing that I find in women is that a woman doesn't even know what she wants. She will give you a checklist. She will write on all of these walls the things that she does not like in a man, but cannot write one sentence of what she likes. And I find that to be the case with so many of my friends. So when you have girlfriends and you guys are conversing about different things, you realize like women are crazy. I'm like, you bitches are fucking nuts.
Emotional creatures.
Like, what you're saying doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
And I think that my grandfather used to say, don't mean to keep bringing him up, it's like, you have to do what makes you and your house happy.
Yep.
And that may not look like anybody else's house. And I think that nobody has the confidence to do that, to define what works in their house.
Yeah. And
have the confidence to say it and not worry what anybody has to say. If somebody asks you, how's your house working? Well, it works because, my husband likes when I tie the socks in the corner of the door, and that works for us, and it doesn't have to make sense to anybody but the two of you.
Yep.
And I think like nobody's willing to do that. It's like, well, my girlfriend's husband does this. Why don't you do this?
Yeah.
And nobody. No. And I think that's the problem overall, women having confidence to just be who they are and in their relationships as well.
I think everything is an illusion with social media. There's so many relationship experts on there.
Yeah. So many single.
Because I know, some of my group chats, there's this meme or this video, and I just got to a place like one of my friends, I was just like, I don't care what social media is saying at this point. Like, if I choose whatever I'm choosing to do, I'm doing it because that's what feels good to my soul at the moment. And I was talking to my homeboy, I talk to him a lot. Like, we have conversations on relationships all the time, but in particular to something that I shared with him, I was tithering on whether I wanted to share with him or whatever, because, like, he's my friend and he's looking out for me. But I was like, you know what? Like, the whole concept of people can't change and people can't honestly make a mistake because they didn't know better and no longer wanted to just like forgive a person and be like, I'm gonna write you off. Like, relationships don't have to end bad. You could be cool with somebody that you once loved or was in a relationship with. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not, it doesn't have to be this whole idea of like, well, we dated and now it's like, F that person, I can't stand, unless it was like some real trifling situation that happened and you're like, I'm good on that. But even talking to him and his idea of things, I'm like, that's not how it works, fam, at all. That's not how life works. Yeah. And I realize I have been a little rigid in my thought process, like my expectations on disappointment from people and things just were an illusion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, that's what it is, right? Like these illusions that people have based on what they think or what they know to be a thing. But when you really look at them, or you look at the camera that they don't know is in their house, you probably see something very different. You know, I've had the opportunity to sit with women who, you know, that didn't do me. They didn't go to school to be an artist, right? So those women, they graduate out of school and they get these amazing jobs and they're making a lot of money for a long period of time. And then you really sit with these women, right? And I'll just be sitting with them having dinner saying the craziest thing. Right? Like just the most off the wall thing. Whatever I'm feeling is what I will say. And, you know, they're all like looking at me like, what the hell? And then individually, as they get me alone, they're able to say stuff that they have never been able to say.
Because you said something that resonated with them.
Right. In the group because everybody wants to have this image that their house is okay. Meanwhile, you know, it's some deep rooted stuff and it really just takes one person to say what they truly feel.
And then they feel seen.
Right. And so, and also I'm just a believer that, you know, when women have these spaces and we are conversing, that it's a safe space, you know, because you really don't know if you're helping someone. Yeah. And that's another thing, you know, I've had this thing that I correct myself on is like the why. You know, we always want to know why. And when really the why is just like this thing that we have to fulfill the very salaciousness of ourselves, right? It's like the new tabloid. And that's not the important thing. It's like, okay, this has happened, so now what? And I think that if we have a responsibility as women is when we're in our circles, somebody has to say, this has to be a safe space for us. Yeah. And that means if somebody wants to exit this space, whatever's at this table still remains at this table, whether you understand it or not. Like as women, we are close, and we realize when we get older that all we have are our sisters. But it has to even be deeper than that. You understand? Because women have to be able to have these safe spaces so that we can really define who we are, just so we can be better in our being. Yeah. And we just don't have it because women have this idea that we are to be perfect. And if we are not perfect, then we are not worthy of love. Yep. And that just is not, that's not true for me.
It's not true for me either.
And I just want people to just stop, you know, just stop. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like sometimes it's bad, you know.
Most of the time it's
the thing, whatever the thing better, is, and I don't mean like bad as just relationships. It could be the job. It could be you. You could be bad. You could be the friend that everybody's talking about. Yeah, you know, you could just be bad. And I think that we just have to admit that the thing is bad and is wrong and it's a piece of shit and we need to fix it, right? And I think once you have that moment, it's so freeing to where you have fucked up, where you have been bad, where have you not been a good friend. Yep. That is our true journey to healing, right? Is realizing like every single thing you feared, you are, and you are still okay. Yeah. And we do not ever like to have the conversations around that. We don't.
That was the last episode. I don't know if you had a chance to check it out yet. When Sarita and I were talking about that, the conversations that we're not having in like friendships. It's like, I'm not okay. Yeah. I don't have it all figured out. Going through some real shit. Like, we are not having those conversations in our friend groups. I agree. And even most times we're not having the conversation with ourselves. That's why we can't have it with other people, because we're too busy trying to hide the fact of like, I don't know if I know what I'm doing. I don't like, everything is falling apart around me. And like you said, it could be one thing is good. Like my career is good. but my mothering like is like to shambles, or vice versa, how, you know, however it looks. But it's okay if things are falling apart and you're figuring it out. That's actually how life is. Like, you're gonna continue to go through some shit, and you're gonna have to figure it out.
Yeah.
As you go through it, you will grow through it, and you will then become in tune with your authentic self, and you'll figure out 9 times out of 10 you was tripping over some shit that you ain't had no control over anyway.
Yeah, like this big monster that's living inside of you, 3 of your girlfriends are dealing with.
Yeah.
You know, and then you guys can go into, you know, communion together to fix it, you know? One of the things I also learned recently as it relates to me is who I am as a friend. You know, sometimes we hop on the phone and we're so ready to blurt out our week, not knowing that the other person is now time for the other person to talk. Like to how to be a better friend. And sometimes if a friend pulls your coattail to it, you know, you're a little offended, you know. Did they just stop me from saying? And it's like, no, it's not that. This is what I always talk about. They don't want to hear that today.
They don't want to hear it today.
They cannot, you cannot dump on this person today. It's just not, you have to find somewhere to go with that shit. Yeah. Take your trash some other place. And I think it's really important that we create those safe spaces that, and even if it's not in traditional spaces where people used to do it, whether that's in church or wherever it is, wherever we're meeting up, it should be that. And, you know, I mean, for me, I just think that I don't know if I'll see that kind of behavior in my lifetime, but I would like to be a part of that's where it's going. Yeah. Because it's imperative for us to, I mean, it's taken us centuries to define ourselves, and we have, it's like, if we don't, it's like such a waste. That means we have lived centuries and centuries for other people. That means that everybody that's died, that fought for us before, has died in vain because we're just not getting it. Because we're not getting it. Yeah. With all of that, how are you like holding on to yourself? And, you know, like now that you are in a different, I always think you're like one of the most grounded people I know, but like, how do you maintain holding on to what's near and dear to you now? Well, one of the things that I realized a couple years ago is just how self-centered we are as people. And I was like, well, what am I doing in my life as I get to my mid to late 40s? What am I doing in my life that services anybody other than just me and my children? And then I realized that nothing. And so it became really imperative for me to start working with some sense of purpose. And I think once I said that and put it out there is where I met my partner, Jamila, and you came to visit us, and we're on our podcast. It was like Jamila. Yeah. Black Women's Lives Matter. That's right. You know what? It was really about finding the group of women that I wanted to, I don't want to say just be like, but I wanted to take from that group, right? And so I saw this group of women that were really just working, right? Working. And I'm like, how do I become a part of this circle? And so I just went and sat in the circle and just like, and sometimes like when you open up, you know, and I say these safe spaces, but sometimes you got to not care. Yeah. You know, so I went to her, I'm like, listen, it's time to pivot for me. And these are the things that are happening for me. These are the things that are not happening for me. And you know, sometimes there are people that just have like special gifts to see, and they know how to make things happen, which is like getting out of your head. And so I just had an honest conversation with her, and I learned a lot, you know. It doesn't mean that, you know, I don't ever mess up, and, you know, and that, you know, we don't have to have conversations around making certain things better within the company. But, you know, I want to be pushed forward. So that allowed me to start working with purpose and working with other women in the world that have just gone through so many things, you know, which is where I Love Me More comes from. Yes. And then the work that we do in the schools and even throughout New Jersey and throughout the world, really, it has just been amazing to also have that, you know, that I get to do something. So, you know, what that did do for me is make some of the trivial things that I go through very small. Right. You like when you leave your circle and realize what people are really going through in the world, you experience that. It doesn't take away what you're going through, but it makes it very small. Like maybe I'm getting gray hair and high blood pressure over nothing. Over nothing, yeah. Because there are people who are really need you, to help them in certain spaces. And I think that helped ground me also in a different way.
Yeah.
One of the things that happened for me is like, I didn't even do TV until I was in my late 30s. I knew who I was already.
Right.
You know, I knew there was a lot about myself that I knew. I knew a lot of things except for the marriage, but that's another talk show. I knew a lot of things, but I knew that wasn't going to kill me.
Yeah.
You know, it sounded crazy, and of course I was hurt, but like, I'm like, this is not going to kill me. I'm like, I'm from Macomb, Mississippi, a little girl with a dream.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to take a lot. Like, even my kids, when they try to hurt my feelings, I'm like, you know, you could never. I'm from Macomb, Mississippi, bro. You could never hurt my feelings.
And their uncle already told them about their mama, right? So like, try harder.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? I feel like, you know, there are some people, and I think, and I don't do it just because I want to feel better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, I just did it because I wanted to get out of my head, out of my circle. I want to push myself in an uncomfortable space of that, which I knew nothing about, you know. Even on the podcast, you know, I find myself like, you know, listening to conversations and not knowing what to say, but I'm still showing up and getting better, and not just getting better, but being a part of a conversation of women that are trying, that have had terrible things happen to them and still trying to move the needle in whatever lane that they're in. And I think that's so empowering.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, you know, sometimes we just gotta, if we can just get out of our head and our current situation, you know, there's such a greater picture.
Yeah, we have to get out of our heads and into our body and be present. I remember even when I came there, like, you were so shocked. And we didn't even get into like how Tara and I know each other, but Tara and I met, I think it was like circa 2014, 15. She was on said show, and I was working on an event for Ron Artest and his dad, and she came to the show. Yep. To the event. And, you know, and we just, our friendship has grown from there. But, you know, I've shared things with her, some things I didn't share with her. So like, when I came to the podcast and she was sitting there, like, she was moved to tears because she was like, I didn't know that you went through all of that.
Yeah.
So, you know, but I felt comfortable. And that was really the first time that I was actually opening the floodgates to let those things out, other than like, you know, obviously my daughters know these things, and some friends, but like in a space where it's going to be out there for everybody. That was my first time doing that. So
yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's sometimes people need a space to say these things that they've never ever said, you know, because like, you know, that's what people consider demons, right? These things that you can't talk about, and they really are greater than we even, well, we allow them to be greater because so many women are experiencing this. And that was one of the things Jamila said, even, you know, at one point when someone else came and related to that. And, you know, she said, well, I didn't even know that was a thing. Yeah. Right. I didn't even know. I can't give you all too much because you got to watch the podcast.
You got to watch this. Yes. You got to watch it.
So many times, like, if it's not affecting us directly, we don't know that it's a thing.
Yeah.
And so that was our purpose for this, is to like give women a voice, not just women who are, you know, we consider celebrities or famous, but like, you know, the everyday woman, if she's ready to tell her story, you know, like if she's not, but if she wants to talk about it. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's amazing.
So to piggyback off of that, for the woman who may not want to or feels like she's ready to, but she doesn't know how to make that first move, what's some advice that you would give to the woman that's in her 40s who may feel stuck?
Oh, I would say the first thing to do is to write it out. It's so much power in writing out what you're feeling, writing out the thing that you never want to say, because you have to get it out. I think that's the first thing. The second thing is, what do you want to do with it? You know, once you get it out, what do you want to do with it? Okay, it's out now. You've said it. Now, what would you like to do with it? And I'm never going to say, like, you know, obviously in this whole journey, I had never taken therapy before, but we are now in family therapy. And so one of the things that I realized is, like, therapy is also one of those things that it's not a moment that you arrive at. Because people always say, well, therapy doesn't work. I'm like, oh yeah, because you're waiting to arrive.
And also, I think now too, like, therapy has become the trend for everybody. Likes to say, my therapist, my therapist. Yeah. No,
it's like, because you want to do the work. It's because you want to do the work, and you want to understand some things about yourself, or also a space to just forgive yourself, because that's part of it, right? We have to there's so many things that we want to beat ourselves up over, but we have to forgive ourselves. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that it's so corny. It sounds so corny and cheesy, right?
No, but it's
like, oh,
it's
you got to
absolutely
forgive
the
yourself,
truth.
but you really do, because these things, they wake you up at night.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
you're sleeping in the bed and that thought literally wakes you up at night because you haven't made some type of peace with it. And I mean, those are the first steps. And you know, and it's important that you write it down, because that's the space that's only for you and your eyes, right? Whether it's a locked journal, whether it's a notebook, I don't know what it is, but you have to find a space to write it out where you're comfortable, to write out the things in your head, because as long as it's in your head, it's like your little secret.
Yeah.
And then you realize, like, that's not so, that wasn't
shameful.
so hard.
Yeah.
It really is not so shameful.
Mm-hmm.
It's not this big demon that I made it out to be. And I mean, there's so many things throughout the city, so many, you know, whether it's like Momentum or your therapist, places where people go to tackle these things and say, hey, this is what's holding me back. Let me deal with that so that I can move forward.
Right.
Like, so I can stop using this as an excuse as to why I cannot. And I will always say it's imperative that you learn how to love yourself.
Absolutely.
You know, I can't,
before you try to love somebody
before
else.
you try to love anybody, it's so imperative that you learn to love yourself. You know, if you have to be able to write a sheet full of things that you like about yourself, that you love about yourself, that you adore about yourself. One of the things that we do with the young girls that I like to do is I like for them to tell me what they love about themselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? And one of the things, the reason I do that is because when they look in the mirror and they see all of the insecurities that they hold, you know,
Right.
whether it's their eyes are too big or their lashes are not long enough, like, I want you to say those things that you love about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, it is the repetition of that makes you feel better, that you begin to learn to love yourself, that
Yeah.
you begin to make all of those things that look so big smaller. You know, I mean, I remember looking in the mirror as a little girl saying, oh my God, I look so funny looking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't, whether it's, you know, my cousins, I'm darker than my cousins, you know, or my hair's not as long as my cousins. You know, we have to learn to love ourselves based, even our physical being.
Right. Beautifully
You know,
flawed people.
sometimes we grow into it, or we you know, we base it off of the cousin that looks the cutest.
Mm-hmm.
And like, those little things affect young girls.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think you know, always that, you know, that's part of the work, to go back and talk to young girls and be there for them, especially in this day and age where people don't, a friend is just like it's like a thing, like an app you can download, you know,
right.
and you download all your information and then it shares it out. That they have people that really care for them in their well-being, especially with that. You know, I don't see people going to church like they used to, or having this community. And then, you know, how do you love yourself?
Yeah.
You know, how do you love yourself? People always say, well, Tara, love is not just self-care. I'm like, no, that's just a part of it.
Right.
Like,
it's
just, it's putting on creams doesn't say I love myself. You know, putting on cream saying I'm committed to constantly caring for my body.
Yeah.
You know, and I love doing this naturally.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was the hardest thing. Cause like, it's like, what do I like to do naturally? It's something I do every day. I never paid attention to, never thought twice about it. And I'm like, oh, I do this every day.
Every day.
Oh,
yeah.
You know, it could be that simple. It's just, and so it's also what I'm listening to, what I'm, the mood that I'm setting. You know, maybe I'm making peace with an argument I just had with my son, or, you know, I could have said something crazy to my kid's father. You know, all of the moments of imperfection that could have happened, that in this moment I'm trying to make peace with, and mapping out, now what is the next step to apologizing, or letting this person know, well, maybe I didn't mean it like that.
Right.
Or maybe we need to stop, you know, doing this or that. Maybe we need to find a better way to communicate, whatever it is. You know, it's all happening in that moment.
Yeah. I would say to the woman in her 40s, as it relates to me, who's trying to reinvent herself and figuring it out and feeling like it's too late. And I said this also, and not to keep referencing like the previous episodes, but I did say it's never too late to reinvent yourself.
Right.
And I said jokingly, but I was somewhat serious. Like, if you met me, you know, last week, I'm not the same person that I was when you met me.
Yeah.
I'm a student of self. So I try to evolve, you know, not if not daily, I want to be a better version of myself constantly. And so my advice would be, if you are in a season of pivots, it's fine. You know, everything is going to work out better than you imagine on the other side. I would just say to keep pushing forward and not pay attention to, like we mentioned before, the illusions and the idea of like, oh, I am, 3 years from 50 and I still don't have whatever is on your checklist. Like, time is an illusion also. So
just go get it.
Just go get it. Whatever it is you want to do, as long as you are committed to it and you are consistent with whatever it is that you want to do, you can achieve it. You can start over. You can have all the things. And all the things doesn't mean that it has to be, like we said before, the husband, the children, the career, the car, the house. Like it really should be that you're fulfilled with yourself first and foremost, and then everything else will fall into place.
Because it's not a knock of people who want that. Yeah. Like if a woman, like most of my friends are married with kids. Yeah. And they are, they're happy and they're figuring it out. It's just that everybody is defined differently, because I don't want us to get in trouble with that. It's really just,
well, we're talking as it relates to us.
Yeah, as it relates to us. It's like, people have to define who they are. Yeah. And if that's what you want and that's what you aim for, that is a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. But I think that it doesn't make you less of a woman if you don't have it.
Absolutely
That's
not.
all
I'm
saying.
What would be something that you would tell yourself in your 30s?
In my 30s?
As it relates to like where you are right now in life.
My 30s, I was having so much fun in my 30s. What would I say to myself in my 30s? I don't know. I was having a good time. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I think, I was having a good time in my 30s. I think that, I would say for me to go harder toward my dream, I feel, be a little bit more intentional. I think that's a new word that I don't think we were using before to describe a certain thing, to be more intentional. Yeah. At 30s, we think we have time. And I'm like, the universe is going to bring it. Right. But I would be probably a little bit more intentional. But I was balancing it out. I was having a good time in my 30s. I had a good time in my 20s, I mean, to be honest, I had moved to New York. I was having a good time. I think 40s though can be where the challenge comes from, and that is to not just be intentional, but to know that you can still accomplish anything you want to accomplish. Because it's like when you hit 50, it's like, oh, well, that's it, right? Well, thank you for your service. Here's your Purple Heart. Right. Keep it pushing. Keep it pushing. But, you're still, women in their 40s are just so, beautiful. And the level of confidence that it comes with. I think that's why people are, I do feel like men have it hard because we're just such, I'm not attracted to women, but I think women are so amazing and beautiful. Yeah. And it's so easy to, fall into the spell of a woman and how she moves and how I love femininity and I love to watch women, how they do their own thing. And I think it's such a beautiful thing, especially when we get in, when 40s hit, because we are more confident. Right. And we're able to just be a little bit better. I think we're more settled into ourselves when we hit our 40s too. Yeah. I mean, personally, I feel like that's when the fun is really beginning. When the fun really begins. Yeah. And I don't feel like I'm competing with anybody, like, young girls. I love them too. I'm like, oh my God, you guys are so sweet and innocent. Yeah. And I just hope you enjoy your journey and just, prepare for the hard times because they're going to come. They are definitely going to come. But while it's not here, enjoy and have a good ass time, cause a good ass time because then the collagen starts to leave. All right. Well, we are at the end of our conversation. So I'm going to say a word and then you tell me as it relates to you and I'll tell you as it relates to me. Like, what that word. Now I'm nervous. Don't be nervous. Okay. Let me just say, because I'm not a good game player. Let's just start there. Don't have me on your team on any game. You will lose. Okay, go. Perseverance. What am I going to say? What do I say as it relates to me? that should be at the top of the paper. Like you have to have perseverance, like every single day. It should be like your name, date, and title, perseverance. You know that. Yeah,
Is it Tara Perseverance Wallace?
Tara Perseverance Wallace. Yeah,
Okay.
you have to. You know, that's the thing that we don't talk about. It's like you have to get up every day. And I mean, we've started to talk about this. Is that you have to get up every day and define who you are. If you're allowed to wake up, that is another day for you to get it right.
Yep.
You know, tomorrow. And this is corny too, and I say that because it's always these sayings, right? And they're always just sayings because we haven't internalized them. And that is, tomorrow is a different day, and it really is. You know, the past is the past. There's nothing you can do about it, not a damn thing. And you only have today and the moment that you're in.
I would agree. For me, as it relates to me, my word is resilience. I, have overcome so much. I'm glad and I'm proud of this current chapter that I'm in right now, and I've been very resilient to get to this chapter. And I am holding that word dear to me. Like that's what I'm holding on to as I move through and navigate to whatever the rest of 2025 brings. Going into chapter 48.
Right.
Is just know that I'm resilient.
Absolutely. I love that.
Okay. Do we want to leave any last words for the ladies out there that's watching?
Listen, you know what? For the ladies that are watching, as I said before, being a woman is such a beautiful thing. And I hope you guys learn to just indulge in that. Life is going to happen and all these crazy things are going to happen, but really indulge in your femininity. It's such a special thing. We should indulge in it like men indulge in their masculinity.
True.
And then define that for yourself. Don't the way you do things, it's going to be different from other people, but have confidence in what it is that you're doing.
I like that. And we'll end on that note. All right, guys. Thanks for watching this episode of As It Relates to Me with my girl, Tara. You can keep up with us on Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, As It Relates to Me podcast. And Tara is...
what am I? I am Tara Wallace on everything.
On everything. See you next time.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. I'm so thankful that you came to join me today as my third guest for As It Relates to Me podcast. You're so dear to me. You probably wouldn't think you are because we don't get to talk all the time because you're busy mothering and kicking ass in life and stuff. But I do consider you to be like one of my dearest friends. Yes.
I love that. I always say, and not to cut you off, I have to say this. We just connected naturally.
We did.
And that's what I love. It just grew. It progressed naturally, and that's how my long-term friendships always are. We never force it. When we pick up the phone, we just pick up where we left off, and that's what I love. Yeah. Because I think as moms, we get each other. We're both busy as crazy.
Definitely get each other.
And then when we get a chance to talk, it's like, girl, I need you because so many things, like that sisterhood. So I appreciate you for that.
Yes. So as it relates to me for you, I am wishing you all the great things for the rest of 2025 and beyond. And I am grateful for you.
Thank you. I'm grateful for you.
Cheers, guys. See you next time.